introduction card, but it's not about a long introduction because these are the people candidates. So I'm going to bring you our brother, been in the legislature 24 years, a friend of labor, Brother Rob Smith, the Secretary of State.
Thank you, Ms. Brenda. Thank y'all for being here. And I look out, when I look around the crowds, and I see the faces of Mississippi. I see the people who have had to worry about where their house payments are going to be made and how they're going to make their car payments and where their kids are going to college. And I look at the faces of folks who know that each month they got to worry about whether or not the junior colleges or our senior colleges, our tuition costs are exceeding up to 50%. I look outside and I see folks that just like me who started working the 9th grade to make a way to where my folks could help me get into college, working night and day all the time during high school, all the way through college, and all the way through a Master's of Business Administration. So I see the faces. I see the faces of Mississippi. And let me just give you a little history back in the 1800s. When this first come up, it was a machinist group and another group out there that says, you know, we ought to be honoring the people who are the backbones of the Industrial Revolution of this state. That's what we are to be honoring. So they come up with this idea of Labor Day so they could say to the workers and out the folks in the factories that we appreciate what you've done to make the profits of the industry in the state of New Jersey and New York. The profits of the companies out there are made because they got good workers. They got honest people who care about what they're doing. It's the profits of the corporations because the workers are back there making the money for them to have that profit. So they made this day, Labor Day, a day to honor the workers of this state. And that's what we're here for, is to say to you men and women out there today, you workers, we thank you for being a worker in Mississippi. That's what we're about. And you see that movement going on. Let me tell you a little reason why as Democratic nominee for the Secretary of State, I look back at House Bill 4 Education Reform Act when I was the only guy from Rankin, Simpson, or Copiah counties that voted for it. Created kindergartens, helped our teacher pay increase, made sure we were actively pushing for our kindergarten program and our educational programs in this state. And I was the only one that stood up in an election year and voted for the bill. And if you're a concrete worker out there, I wish there are. I hope that there's some other folks out there in the asphalt business that you would stand up and say, it was that guy, Rob Smith, who stood up and voted for the HEAD program when nobody out of Rankin, Simpson, or Copiah County stood up and voted for that bill. But it created highways in Mississippi, ladies and gentlemen. It created work for people in Mississippi. It allowed people to sell their land and their timber and their gas and their oils out in the community. It allowed for the equipment dealers to make sure that they were out there selling their equipment. It was where the business community benefited because of the Democrats in this state stood up and put the HEAD program in it. It was Democrats who did it. And if you're a doctor today and you're listening to this speech, you ought to be shaking the hand of a Democrat because it was the Democrats who kept the rural hospitals alive. If you remember back, the rural hospitals were going under. The bonds were going under. They couldn't make the debt service on them. It was the Democrats who come up with the swing bed concepts, and it was Democrats who financed that so that the hospitals in rural Mississippi could stay alive in this state. Let me tell you why we're running for Secretary of State. And it's not a cliche. We care about you. We care about this state. We will guarantee we will have safe elections in this state, but we'll have better participations of elections in this state because we care about the people. Sometimes they forgot who and what it's about. Who is the voter? Who is the voter in the Secretary of State's office ought to be concerned about? It's your customer. The customer needs to be known that it ought to be where we encourage in voting in this state, that we encourage more participation in this state. We are to be saying to the people of this state, we will have better elections in this state because the Democrats running the Secretary of State's office and cares about the working men and women of this state. I'm asking you today, let's get excited about where we are and where we've come from. Let's make sure that we're celebrating Labor Day today because the laborers of this state, the men and women of this state, are just like I am, just like you. We care about our children. We care about our homes. We care about our church. We care about our community. And you union men out there, I saw some firefighters. It was Democrats who wrote the infectious disease bill for you to make sure that you and your family were notified. I saw some police officers out there a while ago, and I wanted the police officers to know it was Democrats who stood up and made sure that if somebody was damaged in the police fields or in the fire fields, that you got benefits. It went from $10,000 to $65,000, and guess what? All that was done by Democrats. So you got to start saying to the Democratic people out there, thank you for standing up for the working men and women. We care about what you go through. We care about where you're at in this state. I'm here today to ask again, you get excited about this election. you get excited and you start saying, we're going to show one of the largest turnouts we can show because we want good, honest people in state government, and we're going to make sure we get them there. Get out and get excited about the vote. Get excited about your candidates. Be excited that you're in America. Be excited that somebody in 1890 stood up for the working men and women of this state and said, we're going to celebrate Labor Day and tell the workers of this state, you are important. You mean something to the community. Thank y'all for letting me be here today, and thank you for helping me out on the Secretary of State's race.